Hello and welcome to Six Figure Authors, the show that helps you take your writing career to the next level. I'm Lindsay Baroker and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Joe Lallo.
And I'm Andrea Pearson.
We are covering part 2 of using your newsletter to sell more books on this week's show. And before we get rolling, last time I was like, oh, we should talk about bonuses. So before we jump back into the questions for Andrea, what kind of bonuses, or do you use bonuses, or do you just be like, hey, do you just be like, man, we're recording this late at night. Can you tell the English is going out the door? Do you use bonuses? And if so, what kind of bonuses are you giving to entice people to sign up for your newsletters?
Is it okay if I go first just to give my voice a break longer?
Go ahead.
Okay. And Lindsay, you had a wardrobe change. I thought we weren't going to do that.
Yes, as we mentioned last week, we were recording these back to back so we can be off next week. I'm still wearing the same shirt. I was just a little cold, so I put on my hoodie.
Oh, I wish I were a little cold. Okay, so bonus content and stuff like that we share. Is this like a reader magnet you're talking about, or like download bonuses? I mean, what were you looking for specifically?
Like what do you promise to people to get them to sign up for your newsletter?
Okay, so that's actually varied wildly across the years. I've gotten better at it. In the beginning, I just offered any old free thing, and then I started getting more targeted, and then I started offering free stuff that they actually wanted, not just within the genre, but things they actually wanted. Now, what I do is I offer a free box set of stuff, and I've included stuff in that box set of, from all of my series, and then a couple stuff that just didn't sell that my readers enjoy reading for free but didn't want to buy. I had plans to update that once a year. I'm not going to update that thing probably. I don't know if ever. I don't know. It's got a lot of free stuff in it. So it's got a full-length novel and a bunch of novellas, a couple short stories. I'm like, there's no reason for me to constantly add more and more to it. I can just not worry about that. Take that off my to-do list. But that's what I do.
Do you find, here's the second half of my question that I came up with for you guys. What that you've done has worked the best? Like is there anything you've done that's like, woo, the signups are just streaming in now?
Yeah, actually there's a short story. So my first book, Discern, it's about this chick and a love interest. They don't really get together until halfway through the series or towards the end of the series. But he's like a complete jerk to her, and you don't know why, and it never explains why in the series. And so I wrote a short scene from his perspective of the first time they meet and why he's a jerk. It has nothing to do with her. It's just he's going through something, and that has been downloaded as bonus content from like BookFunnel more than anything else I've put up, including free novels. And so yeah, that's something that's worked really, really well. So for like listeners, and I always call it a delicious short story, pick something that readers really want and make it, write that, take a day or two, write that, and then use that.
Go ahead, Joe.
So I have gone through a couple different, I used to call them perks, newsletter perks. I've gone through a few. In the beginning, I didn't really have anything. So I made something. I made a short story. I don't remember what the original short story was. And it wasn't particularly popular. And then I tried doing some things. Like I said, I had some art that was newsletter specific, and it was just a big, really nice wallpaper for your computer or your phone. I had them in all different sizes. That was done by the cover artist, and that did okay. And then I wrote a short story that was an immediate prequel, like as in it ended hours before the book started, of the Book of Deacon, my most popular series. And since most of the people who were signing up for my newsletter at that time, and even really still today, are people who were signing up after reading the first book in the Book of Deacon series, they are very interested in reading the first book, like what led to the first book. So that is still technically my newsletter perk. Is it's called the Rules of the Game, and but I'm planning something new now. This is sort of a spin-off of my my Patreon. I often say to people that the Patreon, nothing is going to be on the Patreon exclusively. It will all eventually be released. And the way I've been doing it is I take all the things that aren't related to my other series, and I have basically a series of anthologies called Paradoxes and Dragons, and I release them like that. And then all the ones that are related to my series, I put into a different thing, which I call side quests. And side quests is going to be the annually renewed newsletter perk going forward. So every year I'll take a year's worth of side stories that I wrote in my Patreon and make them a newsletter perk, so that that's the way that you can get them if you don't want to sign up for my Patreon. And I haven't deployed that yet. Technically, the first side quest I gave away for free as part of a COVID let's all give stuff away for free thing. But that's going to be the plan going forward, is side quests gathered up annually.
Alrighty. And for myself, I mentioned I've got 2 newsletter lists, one for my fantasy people and one for my sci-fi people, and they both have different bonuses. The fantasy ones, I actually originally never had anything. Like for probably the first 5 years, I would say, that I was authoring, publishing books. It was just my newsletter was like, here, sign up if you're interested in updates and new releases and tidbits. And I didn't email them very often either. So I did get people to sign up that way that wanted the updates. But I definitely saw a huge boost when I started giving away the bonuses. I did that when I made my sci-fi list, and I gave away this was a Fallen Empire series. It's all out and published now and wide, and it's all from the woman's point of view. It's a not first person, it's third person, but one character throughout the series. And there is a romance that develops over the series. They kind of start out as enemies and things progress as they do, but you never get the guy's point of view. So I did the prequel novella from his point of view that tells his backstory. And that was my first experience with like just tons of people came and bought it. Obviously the book was selling well too. So they got, a lot of people got to the end and signed up, but that email list quickly surpassed in numbers the number of people. Like in months, I had more people on the new sci-fi list than the fantasy list that had been building for like 5 or 6 years, just organically with a form from the site. So I certainly saw the power of giving them something like that. And like Andrea said, it explained the character that you never got into his head in the series. So that is one of my sci-fi bonuses. And then I've got short stories for the new series, and I've kind of forgotten now. I've got 3 sci-fi series, and I do something new with every series. And with my fantasy list, I mentioned in the last show that I have like a box set with the first 4 series starters, 4 novels. And that was less to like, I don't think people are like, oh, I got to get that, because almost all those are perma-free at this point anyway. It was more getting a new reader that comes in on a new series to check out my old series, because they're getting, here's the first one, and they can try all 4 of those, and ideally they'll go on and buy and read all 4 series. But the thing that gets them on that list is I've done bonus scenes for another series, but my new Death Before Dragons urban fantasy series, it's kind of another thing where it's in first person, so you only ever get the point of view of the female protagonist, but there's a love interest that starts out as an enemy. You see a theme. I found that this works for me, guys. He starts out as the enemy and later becomes the love interest. And so people are very curious about what's going on in his head. So I wrote a story that I could give them, but then I also wrote the first 3 books. I think I did the first 3. Some of the scenes I rewrote from his point of view. So this is all new stuff. It's like 20,000 words of his POV. It was a much bigger task than I realized I'd given myself. I think the whole thing ended up being 20,000 words of that, and then 15,000 words of a new story. But again, they really sign up for that way more than just some other side short stories and stuff I've done. So as Andrea said, if you can give them something that they're not getting in the series, but they're curious about, you will get people onto your list. And I have a very good number of people stick around after that point, probably hoping for more bonus scenes, which I do often do, extra things, interviews with characters and that sort of thing. So I try to, every time I've got something new to sell to people, I try to also at least do like, here's I've done like extra scenes. I did one for that Death Before Dragon series. There's also a sentient tiger. So I did a scene where we find out if sentient tigers from another realm like catnip. So that's kind of fun. So that's a little bonus I did for the last book. So those kind of things that give more about the characters that they already are invested in work really well for me. And as Andrea pointed out, this is for readers who are already kind of fans. They at least got to the end of one book versus, starting a new list from scratch. You would do something different in that case. All right, do you have any comments about that? Anything else before we go back into asking Andrea questions about newsletters? All right. So we talked a little bit about subject lines in the last one. Let's talk a little bit about content, because as we mentioned, authors can, it's funny, and I'm the perfect example of this is like, I have no trouble writing a story or a bonus scene to share with people, but do you want me to come up with something interesting about myself to write in a letter? This is very difficult for me. So for authors like that, you know, do you have any suggestions? Like, I always try to make myself at least open with a little bit casual, rambly, trying to be a little funny before I jump into like, here's the new book or here's the bonus scene. But Andrea, what are some good practices for getting the sales without coming across as too much of a hard sell?
So there are tons and tons of methods that authors can use to sell books. A really great one is storytelling. Actually, I know that. I mean, yeah, it does. It requires work. It requires a little bit more thought, and you're going to want to plan. If you do this method, you're going to want to plan it out in advance. And sometimes a story can go across more than one email. Sometimes it's going to be in just one email. Anyway, storytelling. So if you've ever received a letter from a reader who has just gone through something really awful and your book helped them through it, get permission to share it with your other readers, and then you can turn it into if it's not a really wordy one, you could guide them and ask them questions and just turn it into a story, not like a novel or fiction. Just, what's that style of true life? It's like fiction. It's not fiction, but it's written like a fictional story. What is that called?
Anybody got an answer? Nope. Sorry, you're on your own. Our listeners will know.
Yeah, it's like true life. It's not like true life crime. It's a real story, but it's told in a fictional type of way where it just feels like you're reading a story. Anyway, so that's something that would work really well. You could, if you ever like take actual from history, get inspired by history and put that in your books, then tell a story about someone or something that happened that relates to your story. So for example, one of my Coven Chronicles novels, the main character visits a haunted lighthouse in Texas. And the actual lighthouse is not haunted, though there's like this really awesome, crazy history where the first caretaker was super, super eccentric, and he got really angry when they replaced him. He was like the caretaker until he was in his 80s, and he could no longer do it. And when they replaced him, he got really angry, and he just flew off the handle. And so it was really easy to write him into the book as a ghost, poltergeist. Readers have been delighted by that. So I could tell his story in my email, including the parts that occur in my book, and let them know that this part is what happens in my book, and leave it on a sort of cliffhanger ending, and then tell readers to go download the book to find out more. Also, if there's a location your book takes place in, you can find something out about that place, tell a story about it, and tie it into your book. If you're a nonfiction author, telling a story about your life works really, really great. So how your topic helped you overcome a huge trial and how it can help others too. Most of us are fiction writers. We're already telling stories. So if we can bring that element to our emails, we'll be more successful because readers will already feel at home with our books and style. And the way we write our emails and the way we write these stories is going to hopefully be close to the way the flow of our books go and the way our style is in an actual novel. And so like I said, it'll help readers feel at home. As to other practices that get the point across without being pushy, Marketing Donut did a study that found that like 63% of people won't buy for 6 months and 80% take at least 5 follow-ups. So this wasn't in relation to books, but it still applies. It takes people time to make decisions or to even come around to actually buying. And even avid readers sometimes hesitate to jump on board with a new series. So every email needs to be about your books, even if you're going off on something that's not quite related to buying your book. If you're talking about your books regularly, when you do ask them to buy, it won't come as a shock and it won't feel pushy, and it will it'll be more natural. And yes, Marketing Donut, man alive, there's some really crazy marketing researching firms out there.
All right. So we talked a little bit about this a moment ago, but on the subject of tone and vocabulary, what should be our target? Are we matching our emails to the level of our novels, or should we be shooting for a more basic turn of phrase?
Yes and yes. So the goal should be to have our emails sound like us. So kind of like what I was just saying, our tone of voice, regardless of the topic, it's going to be familiar to readers if we follow our personality. I write horror and romance. These are aspects of my person, and there are aspects of my personality that trigger horror and romance. So I can be both lighthearted and funny, and on the other side of my personality, angsty, intense, emotional, terrorizing innocent people. If it's always me, it won't matter what the topic is. People who are successful pretending to be something they're not are really, really rare, and we honestly should probably just avoid them. So just be yourself in your emails and write books that fit you, even if they're written to market, and that really goes a long way when it comes to the subject and the tone and the vocabulary that you're using. Another thing that we don't actually mention in here, but is mentioned in the course, is your emails should be written to a 3rd or a 5th grade reading level between there, because the average American reads at about a 9th to a 10th grade level, or even a 6th grade level. The studies are all over the board, but you want to make your email easy to read and easy to take in really quickly without, lots of big words. And that helps with where the tone is concerned as well.
Although if you're writing hard sci-fi and your novel is full of big words, maybe your email should like be a warning, hey, you're going to get the technical stuff in this book.
Yeah, I mean, but your emails are also selling tools, and so you want to get the point across really quickly and be like, this is the important information. I mean, you can go into things, but not everybody's going to want that away from a story. But I mean, you make a good point. Your books and your writing style is going to, be relatively similar.
All right, so if you're doing your email, and as I mentioned, I guess in the last show, I mean, the whole reason we do this is to sell books. Like, we want people to become our fans, but probably most of us, some of us writers are going to be like awesome at the entertaining letters that, you can make your boring trip to the grocery store sound amazingly interesting. But a lot of other people are like, okay, the books are where it's at, so we want to sell the books. So how many things should you promote in one newsletter? Because I have to ask, because I can be guilty, because I don't email as often, of maybe putting in too many things like, here's the new release, here's the new bonus scene, oh, also there's a new audiobook out from Podium. You know, is there too much? And I guess some of that, answer my own question, is testing on whether the links farther down in the email are getting clicked and you're getting those sales is probably the easiest way to answer that. But do you have any thoughts on general practices, best practices?
Yeah, I mean, we're preaching to the choir here. All of us know what we should be doing, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that many, if not most, authors break away from what encourages the best conversions on this one. Obviously, promoting just one thing is going to get best conversions, but we're not likely to stick to that 100% of the time. My main thing with this is to put the most important thing in the top, to use a table of contents, so like a set of brief bullet points with links, and to repeat links at least twice, if not 3 times in the email. When I have an email that has multiple things in it, I'll mention them in that bullet point at the top, in the meat of the email, and again at the bottom in another bullet point list, just kind of like a refresher. If the other calls to action aren't as important, so like the other things that you want people to do, usually the most important thing is going to be to download a book. And so that's probably going to be the most important thing. And then if something else is not as important, you could consider just having the main one at the top and the bottom, then scatter the rest throughout their email without reminding people again. Simplify the email into pictures, images. So picture, like boom, boom, boom. Studies show that people process images 60,000 times faster than text. So one glance gives them what they need to know. Whereas reading a whole paragraph on text about a new release, it's going to take them much longer to get through. So if you've got an audiobook, a new release, and the cover of the free bonus scene, you can have all of those, just, the audiobook cover, the new release, or whatever, new release first, then audiobook cover, and the cover of the free bonus scenes, have those images all linked to the appropriate places, and then maybe 1 or 2 sentences below that, to just add a little bit of verbs and words in there. That makes it so that readers can get to the point really, really quickly. And as I said, make sure the images are low resolution so they do load quickly. Too many words discourages reading. And I mean, you can have the most important things be at the top in that image type format, and then have the paragraphs or the writing, or if there's something that you want to share outside of what you're wanting them to do, below that. And I mean, that's just one of many ways where you can handle that sort of thing.
Now, you're going to notice a theme where I'll often ask if things change when you write emails less frequently, does the recommended length of a newsletter change with frequency? Like, can rarer newsletters tolerate longer emails?
Yeah. Oh wow, my voice just tried to die there. Okay, so too many words discourages reading, and that's a great tie into what I just said. And my voice is dying here. Okay, so
This is what happens when we record back-to-back episodes. All right. Hopefully
I'm
you'll
gonna
be
take a
okay.
quick drink. Lindsay, do you mind filling the blank for a minute?
I will excellently fill the blank. That was a good point, though, about making it like with pictures, breaking it up. You don't want this wall of text. This goes the same with ebooks. If I open your sample and it's a freaking wall of text on the first page, I'm like, you already have points against you. We like to be able to scan quickly through things. And even though I often feel like I have too many things, sometimes I do, put headers like new book, new audiobook, Star Kingdom bonus scenes, whatever, so that people who are scanning can quickly see like they only care about the bonus scenes, and see that, and not necessarily just get a massive text. And even if you're telling more of a story, like we talked about, some people like to do, use the enter key is your friend, right? You just don't, especially on mobile, man, when you see that there's like no paragraph, it's sort of a turn off, even for somebody who likes to read. All right,
No, it
pass
really
it
can
back.
be. And I mean, like what I usually do with my emails, I mean, I'll occasionally break away from it and have 3 sentences in a paragraph, but I like 1 or 2 sentence paragraphs. And I know our English teachers from high school or whatever gonna be like, that's not a full paragraph. And I still have readers tell me when they read my books occasionally, and there's 1 sentence in a paragraph. That's not a complete paragraph. You need to add more. I'm like, yeah. Anyway, so in back to Joe's question, he was asking about if the recommended length of a newsletter changes depending on frequency. Too many words does discourage reading. If you're writing less frequently, getting to the point even faster is the most important thing. Need to be reminded very quickly about who you are and why you're emailing out of the blue. And if you email too infrequently or aren't consistent, it will fill out of the blue. So conversely, emailing frequently means getting to the point quickly too, though. So I don't know. My whole point here is get to the point. Don't ramble a ton. I mean, I am a wordy person, but I don't ramble. When it comes to the business stuff, I am like, this is what I want you to do. This is what's going on. This is what's, everything. And then when I get to the personal side, I get more wordy, but I have readers who read that part and then readers who just want the important stuff. And so just be concise, get to the point, tell them what you want them to do in your emails. And if you don't have a point to your email, don't send the email.
We've covered this already a little bit, but as far as content goes, do you have any tips for what you can talk about versus just like, here's the new book, here's a picture of my dog? Any tips for authors that may help them get even, like I know you should actually ask for replies or ask them to take some action, because then you'll be less likely to go in the spam folder next time if they have a relationship of like clicking on your content and interacting with it. So what are your thoughts on that?
I like how this is kind of the Lindsay dogging on Lindsay episode.
It's a common theme of our podcast, I think. Do what I say, not what I do, guys.
Yes. So my first suggestion right here would be to pull your readers. I mean, you can do it frequently. You can do however often you want to do it. It doesn't have to be like an official poll, but ask them questions about themselves and their lives, their favorite books, movies, music, things like that. Favorite things about their houses, things they don't like about their houses. Just go from there. And you can use those answers as a way to sell books later. So like fixing pain points, etc. You can use them to generate content ideas and, of course, find new readers. Just make sure you let them know that if they're sharing, if you plan on sharing responses, that you might share their response, or don't share. You can try spotlighting readers, telling a story, and it doesn't have to be one with the goal of getting a download, or talk about favorite recipes, tie that into maybe a character's favorite recipe, things like that. Just like I said, make sure you're giving them a reason to open your emails, provide content worth reading, and tie everything back to your books. Yeah.
All right. So one of the other things I think about a lot, and we've discussed earlier, should you be encouraging responses to your emails? And I'm just going to ask the follow-up right up front. If you do, should you reply to those responses, and how long should you keep that conversation going?
Okay, so how long you should keep a conversation going? I don't know. I don't come across this way, but I hate emailing back and forth. Absolutely hate it. And I generally end it after one or two back and forths. And if somebody keeps responding, I'm just like, I will shorten my responses until they have nothing to respond to, just to get them to stop. I don't like doing email, and I'm notoriously bad at it. And it's really funny because I'm always like, you need to be emailing people and encouraging response and stuff like that. My favorite way to get responses is through Google Forms, honestly. But so yes, you should encourage responses. Every situation is different though. And I've been through plenty of periods of time where getting email pushed me into a panic state that lasted months. And I'm just climbing out of one right now. So now I'm actually answering emails as they come in instead of ignoring them for several months because it panics me thinking about having to answer. From a business perspective, here are a couple of reasons why encouraging responses is good. So it improves sender and receiver relationships, so both personal and technical. So the email client side. It improves your reputation, respect with the email client. So if people are emailing and responding, it means they want to hear from you. It helps people connect with you. And if listeners can't tell, I did write this up ahead of time because I don't usually think in bullet points, not concisely anyway. If they're responding, they're doing something, and conversions later will be easier and better to come better, and they'll be easier to come by. So studies have shown that somewhere around 60% of the time when someone isn't buying, it isn't because they're buying someone else's product. It's because they're simply not doing anything at all. So getting them out of that lethargic, no action funk is important. Having it be a habit to do something when they get your emails is good. Not all responses, like I said, need to be via email. And as I said, I love using Google Forms. I'm able to quickly take in information without getting a ton of emails and without having to respond to a ton of emails. So I'll be like, what is your favorite thing about your house? Go put your answer in here. And having them click, while different from having them respond, still benefits you and your reputation as an email sender. And then should respond or not. Like I said, I respond to almost everything, but not all emails require responses. Okay, so I respond to things that require responses. Not everything does though. A couple back and forth messages does wonders to send a respect, and not to mention you making your reader feel like $1 million. So yeah, if getting emails doesn't overwhelm you, then encourage email responses. If it does, have people fill out that form, and you can include their answers in your next email, things like that. I don't know. Yeah, I encourage emails and responses very rarely. I do send them mostly to the Google Forms. And then, like I said, I don't encourage the back and forth conversation because I don't even do that with my family and my friends. I'm like, stop emailing me.
I like that idea of doing Google Forms, and maybe I will even try to do that. Though I do have to wonder, is there, as far as like interaction and maybe getting the providers to be less likely to treat you as spam, is there a difference between them clicking the link to go buy the book and them clicking on a link to go to Google Forms, or is just any clicking's good, so encourage it?
Any clicking is good as long as it's not the spam or unsubscribe button.
Right. All right. So as far as tracking how effective your emails are being, there's those quotes like think that which gets measured gets improved, and the opposite. Like if you're not measuring it, it's never going to get any better. And all the email providers provide some stats. If you click it, like how many times was this link clicked, but it's a little hard to trust them. A lot of people have privacy things set up, or just their ISP is like, nope, sorry, you're not getting that information. So what are your thoughts? And we should point out, I love affiliate links, and honestly, that's the easiest way to know if I sold books, and I use them on my Facebook page, but you're not supposed to use them on newsletters for Amazon anyway. I'm not sure if iTunes or Apple and the other stores that have affiliate programs care, but they're great. But you're not supposed to use them unless you could redirect them to your website and then have the affiliate link on your website. But then you possibly risk losing people because they have to click more time. So I will stop rambling and ask you what you think about tracking whether people are clicking on your links and buying your books.
So Amazon requires you to get every website that you post affiliate links on approved through them. And so it's not just, Facebook everywhere, pretty much everywhere, unless you get approved through them. And my little light just died. My light went out, guys. So
Unfortunate.
yes, very unfortunate. If you're getting clicks, then your emails are converting, but keep an eye on clicks. 2.5% is normal for an open rate of around 15% to 25%. 5% and up is normal for an open rate above 25%. Obviously, anything above 5% is amazing. If you're getting 50% open rates and only 2.5% clicks or even less, then your content is the problem. So people who are super personal, and this was something I've mentioned already, I've mentioned last week, people who are super personal end up with lower conversions and higher opens than others. Readers are devouring their content, but they aren't motivated to do anything about it. So avoid that trap. I can't recommend people use affiliate links since that's against the TOSs of Amazon's system, but it's a great way. It is. I mean, it's a great way to find out if your selling emails are converting. And a lot of authors do it anyway, you know, until you get cracked down and you lose your affiliate account, but that's usually only bringing in a few hundred a month anyway. So, I mean, there's also different sorts of different ways to check if your emails are converting. And I know that it's mostly going to be, we're looking for when we're selling stuff, are they converting? But it's also, I mean, are people filling out your polls? Are people downloading other readers' books? Are they, what else is there? Are they posting reviews? Anything that can, basically anything that can help you monitor whether your emails are converting. You can pay attention to whether you get a bump after sending an email about a specific book. You can set up other things to find out if people are doing what you ask them to do. Like I said, Google Forms, likes on your page, following you on BookBub, posting a review, things like that are easy to track. And almost all the time, if there's money involved, if they're not buying your books, they're probably not buying other people's books, and not always vice versa. But I mean, affiliate links, I mean, that's like, it really is the easiest way other than watching to see how much of a bump you get after you send an email. Unsatisfying answer, right?
I know we all just want to use the affiliate links anyway. I did it in the past when, you know, I rarely do exchanges anymore. I mean, I only experimented with it when I jumped into the new genre, the sci-fi, which is not that new now after 4 years. But and my point is, I did swaps and I kind of figured out how can I do this, and you know, I'll email like with their 3 books. And I definitely found that even including the covers, like the book 1, it didn't matter how great the cover was. Book 1 got the most clicks, book 2 the least, book 3 or sales anyway, clicks and sales. So, you know, I feel like, yeah, you're not supposed to use affiliate links, but it's the easiest way to know. But you should get a bump if you have a reasonably big newsletter. Even if you're doing a lot of things that day, your newsletter is probably going to be, I mean, it's certainly my biggest source of sales. A BookBub thing might be an exception, probably, yeah. But you're not going to have a BookBub going out for your new release anyway, the same day that you're emailing your list. So you should know to some extent if you're getting the sales. I have no idea how to suggest like how many you should get per 1,000 people or anything like that, but certainly I would hope for hundreds of sales if you've got a newsletter in the thousands. All right, Joe, I'll pass it off to you.
Okie doke. So, it's sort of the same topic here, but should we be stressing about things like open rates and click rates? And what are some benchmarks to shoot for, or maybe to watch for, you know, warnings levels that we should make sure that we're above?
Yeah, so I don't know. I say don't stress too much, but don't get complacent either. As the saying goes, there's always room for improvement. So don't kill yourself over it, but if you can fix things that might be causing problems. So are people not opening your emails? Then how are your subject lines doing? Are they boring or misleading? And then with your content, if people are not converting or if they're unsubscribing, most authors are not going to have the problem of being reported as spam or being have subscribe, especially not our listeners, because you know, people who listen to podcasts that teach how to be good authors don't generally try to be bad authors, right? So we're not going to get like spam and tons of unsubscribes. But I mean, let's see, do you talk too much about things that are irrelevant or off topic? Are you consistent? Do you treat readers with respect? Are you personal in your tone? Are you acting natural and like yourself? So all of these things can positively or negatively affect your opens and clicks. Pay attention to what we've already talked about, where oversharing and undersharing are concerned. So if you're not connecting with readers, your conversions won't be as good. And if you're over connecting, drawing back the current too much, your conversions, again, aren't going to be as good. It's a fine line to walk, and none of us are perfect at it all the time. yeah, that's pretty much the end of that answer, I believe.
We are fortunate though as authors that we are giving people something they want. Like imagine how hard it is to sell those enhancement pills for certain organs. Like most people, I mean, I suppose there's a few people that want that, but you know, like I feel like our open rates are probably the highest in the industry, you know, us and maybe other entertainers that are, people are signing up, assuming they signed up because they read our stuff and want more of it. So I guess don't stress too much, right? We had a few tips at the end. Do you want to, should we jump into those and you can tell them about your course after that? All right. Honestly, I feel bad. I should have had people, we should have told them about your course at the end of the last episode, but everybody was freezing up. So apologies, we've had a few Zoom technical difficulties during recording this two-part episode. So thank you guys for sticking with us. But just a few things to ask to end with for this giant two-part episode. One, we skimmed through your course. It's very long and meaty. You guys, you should probably take it if you're interested in more of this stuff. I don't know. But one of the things you mentioned, which I thought was worth highlighting, is setting deadlines to encourage readers to buy now. And I've definitely, like, you don't want to do anything hokey, right? Or like a lie or say this is only on sale for now, if that's not true. But I've definitely had my best results when it's been like a limited time sale, or especially when I've a couple of times now to reward people who order the books right away when they come out. I've done deals on the pre-orders, like $2 off the usual $4.99 price. That goes up to full price on the release. Any thoughts for, deadlines make people act or more? Because I had excellent pre-order numbers when I did that. Everybody wants a deal, right? So any thoughts on that, getting people to maybe more reliably or boost their interest in acting by creating a deadline if it makes sense to do?
Yeah, I mean, even when you're not selling, even if you just want to get information from your readers through a poll, things like that, creating a sense of urgency or scarcity is one of the best marketing and other tools like business tools out there. And you mentioned legit. As long as it's legit, it can be very powerful. So I'm going to say that most people are exhausted. We're lazy, we're stressed, we're bored, we're indifferent, all of that. If you show the value of something, it convinces them that they should buy, but it doesn't convince them that they should buy now. So putting a deadline on it or limiting the number of items available for purchase can be really motivating. And I'm going to talk just a little bit about what about the, creating a false sense of urgency or a false deadline. There are a ton of people out there who market their courses, and I'm specifically targeting course creators right now. They market their courses year round, and year round, if you click on their websites, they have a countdown timer that says this deal will end in 2 hours. But if you click to their website from a different computer a day or two later, that countdown is still there, and it still says this deal will end in 2 hours. This is scammy, and it was going to ruin your reputation in the long run. Yeah, I mean, and the same goes for Facebook ads. Don't tell people the deal is ending soon if you plan on that ad being up for a long time. People are smarter than that. They can see when a comment's been there for a whole year, or, and you're getting comments in all the time. And the same thing's going to be with your emails and your sales and things like that. So creating a sense of urgency or deadline is really, really good. And yeah, like the pre-order thing, that's awesome. Like what I used to do when I do pre-orders quite regularly is I would be like, the book is going to be up for 99 cents until the end of the launch week. Grab your copy now, or it's going to be up for 99 cents during the pre-order period only. Things like that are really, really great to get people motivated to buy. And having a launch week price that is better than regular is also good, because it gives you that urgency. Again, it's not only is it a new product that people are going to want to download eventually, you're adding that urgency that gets them to download now instead of waiting.
And a quick question on the polls, because we talked about that a little earlier. What kind of things, anybody can think, but I was thinking I should ask everybody what their favorite book is, because if they like my stuff, they probably like other similar authors, and maybe I could then share with the list. 10 people love David Eddings also, so you should check him out. But I was kind of wondering with a form how to make that easy. On my end, right? Because they're gonna have to write in a title, and somebody has to then go through all the titles that get written in. So any thoughts on what kind of polls to do? And if you do something like that, is there an easy way to gather that information?
Yeah, multiple choice answers. And when I do my big polls, like when I'm trying to get information about my readers, like their demographics, I will provide them the answers with multiple choice questions and answers. So if I'm looking at like the country and the world, I will split up the United States into like the East, the West, the Mid, the South, all of that. And I'll say, where are you from? And then they pick a multiple choice answer. And then like across the country, I'll have like the, South America, Central America, Asia, sometimes, all of those kinds of things. So you just decide what you want to do with your different types of demographics, things like that. But topics are that you would want to poll people about are anything that you might find valuable to know. So demographic are already mentioned that. Reading habits, buying habits, etc. So if you know how your current readers buy, read, and who they are, then you're more able to target readers who are similar successfully. I use polls liberally. They're one of my favorite forms of communication because of how manageable the incoming data is. What you're trying to achieve is understanding and knowledge so you can expand your business and connect with readers. Plus, people love talking about themselves and being asked questions. It really helps. And like in the case of Lindsay I know we have a lot of listeners who manage their business similar to how Lindsay does her emails. Like if you send out a poll that asks them about themselves, they're going to be like, my favorite author wants to know something about me. They're going to go and answer, And so if you open-ended questions are great because they get to express themselves. I read those responses. Sometimes I'll wait a week before I go through them and then I'll quickly go through them. Sometimes I have my assistant read them and give me the gist, Sometimes if it's something I'm really, truly curious about, I will read the answers more than once because, I don't know why. But generally, like, if you provide the answer to them, it just makes that information really, really easy to get across because, you get a little graph and it shows you a little pie chart of ages and things like that. So asking them their ages, the gender, their location, like their buying habits, things like that are really great because then you can target future readers who fit in those same demographics. And it just makes marketing a lot easier.
So the answer is there's no easy way to ask them their favorite book because you can't do that. You get 4 choices. It's Harry Potter, it's Twilight, it's Lord of the Rings, or that's it. That's what your choices. That might be a case where it would be worth it just to pay someone for a couple hours of work to go through and gather the data for you. That would be pretty easy. All right.
Yeah, sorry about that. My brain is like... I'm like, oh, you're right. You did ask that specific question.
Well, and I'm sure actually there would be the problem would be they would type it in differently too, but they'd be like the Belgariad, or like I loved the first David Eddings series, so like it would be hard to even search for how many times did this book come up, but.
Yeah, that's why Fiverr was invented.
I just want to say what's funny about this to me is that I'm listening to this saying, well, you just write a Python script and then enter in the similar names into the filter. And like this was my job. So for me, it's like, oh, that's easy.
Joe, you're hired.
Yep, Joe, everybody's been coming to you now. How much you charge an hour, though? Those programmers, man, they make big money.
They do. They really do.
All right. And I guess we should clarify too that we're not just trying to like effectively stalk your readers by asking where they live or how old they are. It's actually useful to know, like a lot of people write like YA fiction and they only learn later through interacting with readers through emails that most of their readers are like in their 40s or something. So it's good to know because then you can know too, like maybe what social media platforms you should be targeting. If you find out actually you've got a lot of young readers, maybe you want to hop onto TikTok if it's still legal in the US by the time this podcast comes out, or Snapchat, or one of the ones that the younger readers, and if you have more boomers and like Generation X, maybe you should be on Facebook, which probably I'll be on Facebook anyway, but that is not necessarily the place where the younger folks hang out. I understand as an old fart now. Any thoughts on that? I have one more question for you.
No, I mean, a part of me is like, why would somebody, a lot of authors in their 50s, why would an author be on Snapchat at that age? I mean, obviously to connect with readers, but some readers are just me like, that's creepy,
I was listening to somebody and she said she got onto TikTok and was like, the dance videos are really cool. She's like in her 60s. So you never know who's out there watching them.
My nieces are like, you really need to try it, Andrea. And I'm like, Okay, maybe someday.
All right, last question on this. So any final tips for kind of selling the book in the email? Like, do you put the blurb in? Do you write like, oh, wow, this was my favorite book to write, if it was, because of this, this, and this? I'm kind of guilty of just saying like, hey, I really enjoyed hanging out with the characters in this one. I hope you will too. Here's the book. Or sometimes I'm lazy and put the blurb in. Are there better things to do to kind of pre-sell it?
Okay, so some of the things that I found helpful include telling readers what other readers are saying. So I'll get little short one-liners from my street team, my review crew, and I'll present those. And I link to the book every instance the title is mentioned. So be genuine, be concise, put the most important things at the top of the email. I like what you said. You said you put something funny and then you get into the meat of the thing. That's like your process, your style. That has trained readers. And so it's important to be consistent in how you present information. And so that is really great. Putting the most important things at the top of the email, using images, link to the book more than twice. In the course, sorry, I go into several selling methods that work well for authors, and at least one of them should work for pretty much every personality type, if not multiple of them. So anyway, like I was saying, the way you, Lindsay, do it is, I mean, you're saying that you just give the stuff, the blurb, the links, the image. That's really great because it cuts past the crap. And of course, there are other ways that will include warm fuzzy that also attract people, such as storytelling, conceptual selling, things like that. As long as the author is always genuine and honest and upfront and confident, that's huge. They'll be miles ahead of competitors. And I also recommend studying the different sales methods. Study what entrepreneurs, that's such a hard word, are doing. Something I found interesting while researching for the course, research what entrepreneurs are doing to sell things. And then I would research, or so what their tips on selling and writing a newsletter. So entrepreneur tips on selling and writing a newsletter. I found that they were straightforward, they were bold, they were confident. And then when I started researching how people recommend authors write newsletters and sell books, I found it wasn't true. It wasn't the same. So they're like giving tips for authors, but they were hesitant. They were cautious. It was like they were worried about stepping on toes. And these are people we know. I'm not naming names, but when I read their articles, I was like, why are you being so hesitant about this? Like, authors need to be confident. Authors need to be like, don't be cautious. People are on your list because they actually want to be there. So don't hold back in your selling emails because you're hesitant to ask people to buy. So be confident, be yourself, but be upfront and concise. The end.
I do feel that as authors, we have a tendency, a lot of us, not all of us, but to be kind of like critical and judgmental of our work. And it's still like, even if you have like great reviews, you never know. Are they going to like this new one? I don't know. I hate to say it's like the best thing I've ever written. I never say anything like that. I'm like, I had a good time. I do think it's probably easier for types like some of us to say like, I liked this and this about this story, rather than you will love this and this about this story. Maybe easier to write and truthful.
And being confident, I'm not necessarily saying you're going to love this book, because that can kind of annoy readers sometimes. Being confident, I'm saying like, buy my book and then give them a link, So don't be like, you really ought to pick up this book the next time you get a chance because you might like it and it could help your life. I mean, just say what you want them to do. And that comes across as self-assured, and people are drawn to people who are, they're confident, they're comfortable with themselves. And so even if it's not the way you are, fake it till you make it. I've been saying be genuine, but when it comes to getting people to buy, you want to say, buy my book, and not be, scared to do that. And that's not directed to you, Lindsay. I was just trying to clarify for readers or listeners, whatever they're called.
Those people out there. All right. Joe, did you have any other final questions you want to ask, or let us know if you enjoyed TikTok?
I have no final questions. TikTok is fun. I'm not a
Do you
K-pop
like the
fan.
dancing? Do you like the dancing?
Good. I watched the TikTok that taught me how to make iced tea, and that was good too.
All right, excellent. Well, Andrea, let everybody know if they want to check out the course and get even more. Like, it's huge, guys. You should. I don't know, how long is it actually? Do you talk through it all?
So it was about 2 hours to record. I broke it off into sections, and I'm a fast talker. And so it's like, and people who know me know I don't put fluff in. So it's pretty much, it's a beast of a course. And there's a lot of meat in it. It can get overwhelming to take it in. So like I said, I broke it into sections. The whole reason I put it together was to help authors simplify their lives, honestly. So instead of having people run out and research and figure out what kind of subject lines to use, or stressing over content, things like that, banging their heads against the walls trying to come up with all of that stuff, just take my course, honestly. And I'm going to give a coupon code SIMPLIFY for 25% off. It is a new course, and so I'm not going to do my regular 50% off on this one. Advanced Newsletter Marketing. You can go to selfpublishedoncourses.com. And we did forget to put this in the last episode. I totally didn't even occur to me. And so I'll go ahead and link in the Facebook group. So those of you in the Facebook group last week, this is why I did this without putting a link to it in last week's episode. Anyway, so I've still got my colon discount on the rest of my courses. That one's still active for 50% off on the rest of my courses. That includes my automation sequence course, which goes in very much in depth into what we've, the automation stuff we were talking about today. But yeah, go grab Advanced Newsletter Marketing, use the coupon code SIMPLIFY for 25% off. And the link is selfpublishedoncourses.com. And I'm going to see if I can have it be one of my featured courses. So when you get there, you can scroll down and it's just right there at the top. Again, the end. I swear, like, my brain is like kind of falling apart here. The longer we talk, it's harder to hold the thought together.
All right. Well, that's what we get for doing a double episode in one night. Whose idea was this? Wait, it was my idea. Okay.
But I thought it was great too.
All right. Well, then we get next week off. It'll be excellent.
Yeah.
But thanks for listening, everyone. Check out How to Make Iced Tea on TikTok. Check out Andrea's course. They will both equally and make your life better, I'm sure. Thank you also to Joshua Pearson for producing the show, and you can find the show notes and Andrea's links at sixfigureauthors.com with the number 6. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So long, everybody.